Hello, everybody, and welcome to the NBA Trade Zone podcast, where we talk all things NBA trades, past, present, future. Hi, guys. My name is Daniel.
And I am Sebastian, and today we are going to discuss the breaking news that Kristaps Porzingis has been traded to the Dallas Mavericks, and we're also going to offer our takes on the Anthony Davis to the Lakers saga, or Anthony Davis requesting a trade. Danny, where would you like to start?
Definitely with this Kristaps Porzingis trade. I mean, definitely came out of nowhere, and what a shock it was. But holy crap, will it be fun to watch Doncic and Zinger playing together. If he ever gets healthy, of course.
So I do have a few questions. I didn't do enough research right now because we are just recording live. Is Porzingis expected to come back this year?
Okay, so that's still questionable whether Zinger's expected to be back. I mean, nobody really knows. I don't think that's even the Mavericks care whether he comes back this year or not, in all honesty. They might even prefer he comes back next year fully healthy. I'm pretty sure they'll probably, and this is me completely speculating here, but I'm pretty sure they'll probably sit him out throughout the remainder of this year and really have him come back next year once their team is more set. I mean, they did just lose a decent amount of depth here, even though they are gaining Courtney Lee, who's barely been playing all season, and Tim Hardaway. They are losing some depth here with Dennis Smith Jr., Wesley Matthews, and DeAndre Jordan all leaving. So I don't think this is definitely not a move for this year. This is definitely a move for next year and beyond. And what an exciting move it is, indeed.
Yeah, when it comes from the Mavericks perspective, I mean, this is a very exciting move. The Mavericks really didn't have a lot of options to improve themselves. They did really well with getting Luka Doncic, but obviously they didn't have their pick this year. Doncic was playing too good, even to go for a lottery pick next year, or at least an early lottery pick. So, and they didn't have much cap space from what it looked like. So, getting Kristaps Porzingis in this deal is a smart move. I mean,
to interrupt you real quick, they actually were projected to have a ton of cap space, probably close to $60 million, but with one potential superstar, I don't think they were going to do much. Mind you, this one potential superstar is only 19 years old.
Yeah, and then as we also seen, Dallas has never been a huge free agent destination like the other team we'll be discussing later today. My question is, could the Knicks have gotten a better deal?
Well, and I was going to save this part for the losers here, and I think one of the biggest loser in this situation, and I'm not going to say in this trade because they're not a part of it, but boy, did the Phoenix Suns not screw up this year by letting go of Tyson Chandler and Austin Rivers, because those are two guys they could have easily used in this deal. Basically thrown them in and offered a much better deal than they could have taken on Tim Hardaway, could have taken on Courtney Lee just like Dallas did, and they could have obviously acquired Kristaps Porzingis, and they could have thrown in some better players. I mean, they could have thrown in Bridges, they could have thrown in Josh Jackson. I think it would have made much more sense if Phoenix would have involved themselves had they had those players. By releasing those players, getting nothing in return. I don't know why they did it. I didn't know at the time why they did it. And now, obviously, it seems much more baffling. I mean, obviously, you couldn't have expected this, but this is the NBA. You expect anything.
Yeah, so, I never understood the whole getting rid of players and buying them out. You're still paying their salaries. And what's the point? Well, especially for people who are not going to be there this year.
Well, I mean, the point of it is you're basically doing a favor to the players. And that's why most of these buyouts happen after the trade deadline when these players can be traded. That makes perfect sense. Plus, these are players, I mean, these sellers are usually teams, if you're trying to trade this player, probably trying to tank. Usually it makes sense to get rid of that guy who's not getting any player time. It's a favor. It's a favor to the player.
I mean, I guess you can make the point if they're, yes, that makes sense if they're, on their last year of the contract and they're on the last year of the contract and it's past the trade deadline, so you're guaranteed not to get any assets, or you can't include them in any type of deal. But like, even let's just take the LA Lakers and the Luol Deng. Was it smart to do his contract like they did?
Yes, extremely smart. I mean, not extremely smart, I shouldn't say that, but yes, mainly for the reason that they saved about $1.5 million maybe a little less than $1.5 million on his over the next 3 years, because when they bought him out, they paid him a little less than his contract would have paid him. That gets stretched out over 3 years, so they probably paid him about $5-6 million less than he would have received over the next 2 years.
But couldn't you do that this summer?
He might have been less inclined to take a cut because he wanted to play this season. He wanted playing time this season, so he probably saved them a little more money than he would have next season. So I think, yes, that was a move that the Lakers probably had to make just to be safe. And granted, they get what they have what they need, I should say. I mean, they had that. This move gave them the cap space availability to do what they had to do. So to essentially do what they have to do. I'm sorry, this upcoming offseason. So yes, it made sense. But for the Suns, going back to where we're a little off tangent here, but yeah, the Suns, I believe, really screwed up by doing that. They also had Darrell Arthur, who was worth about $7.5, who they also waived. They made a huge mistake, and I always thought that Zinger would have made perfect sense in Phoenix. And imagine if they had gotten the first pick, if you could have Zion Williamson at small forward, Kristaps at power forward, and DeAndre Ayton at center next season, along with obviously Devin Booker. Wouldn't that have been an absolute terrifying lineup?
I mean, there's a lot of big guys on that team.
Yeah, of course, but I mean, yeah, but Kristaps stretches the floor well.
Yeah,
obviously Zion is very versatile. Yeah, maybe a little bit, but it's the Phoenix Suns. They always have defensive problems. I'm just, obviously, okay, fine. I'm giving you a situation here.
Okay, sure. Awesome. I can agree with you that the Suns have made some stupid moves, or just by not trying to use these players in some kind of trade assets, or in a trade kind of like the New York Knicks just did.
So yeah, going back, other teams. I mean, where would it be made sense? He would have made sense in a lot of places, I should say. But yeah, a lot of the teams weren't willing to take on Courtney Lee and Tim Hardaway Jr. Obviously, I love Cuban for what he's doing. He just does not care. He's like, here, give me all those guys. I'll take them on. He threw in 2 first-round picks. Kind of even sounds like he gave up a little bit too much in this deal. I mean, if Kristaps comes back and it was the player that he was, there's no giving up too much. You did what you had to do.
I like the move because it is a gamble, like you are saying, but they needed to take some kind of risk. They needed to take a gamble. And the good thing is, even if this doesn't work out, you're not in a worse place than you were going to be, in 2 or 3 years. You're still going to have Luka Doncic and pretty much by himself. So you're still going to be at that place. Yes, you've given up some draft picks. One of them is unprotected. The first one, so 2021, is unprotected. But the hope is that you're not going to be in the top just because of how good Luka Doncic is.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you said, it's a risk that they probably needed to take. They needed to put a second potential superstar around Doncic. I don't know if they had to do it this quickly, but they did it. They pounced on an opportunity that became available. They did not wait. I love the balls on this trade. So out of this deal, what happens from here? Where does each team go from here? I think we should discuss this. So with the Knicks, now that leaves them for next year in terms of their guaranteed contracts. They have Frankie Smokes, Kevin Knox, Mitchell Robinson, and Dennis Smith Jr., who was included in this deal. And they have a couple of guys who they have under team control, but not necessarily guys that they have to keep around. And Alonzo Trier, Dwayne Dotson, and Luke Cornett, all these guys are solid players for them this year. All of them will not be very expensive next year, but with those 7 players under contract, if they decide to guarantee Trier, Dotson, and re-sign Cornett, who has a qualifying offer, they will be at just under $30 million for those 7 players. Now, you have to take their first-round pick into account here, and depending on where it lands, it's going to be a big deal of how much they have. Not a big deal. It's not going to make a huge difference, but it will make some type of difference. The first selection in the draft is expected to make over $9.6 million next year. The second is at $8.6. The third pick is at $7.7. So it fluctuates there. And if the Knicks are trying to sign 2 max free agents, and especially a free agent like Kevin Durant, who is going to be worth a little more because he's going to be a 10-year veteran, They may or may not, depending on where this pick lands. They'll be able to sign both. I mean, Kyrie Irving, Kemba Walker, whoever it is, and obviously Kevin Durant, who they've made no secret about pursuing. They may have to basically release Alonzo Trier. They may have to do something with Dwayne Dotson. I'm sure they'll be willing to do that if those two players come in. What do you think are the chances that a Kevin Durant and a Kyrie Irving or Kemba Walker go to New York? And how do you think it'd be a smart decision for them to do so? And also take into account, I should say, that they could always package Frankie Smokes, Kevin Knox, and whoever their first-round pick is for another superstar, whether it's Anthony Davis or Bradley Beal, even though trading away Kristaps has hurt their chances of acquiring Anthony Davis. Take that into consideration.
Yeah, I think it does sound like to me that Anthony Davis is pretty much off the table unless they get the number 1 pick. So if Zion's involved, I can see a different discussion. But, even if you are the worst team, your chances of getting that pick is, 15%, I believe? So they're still not very high.
They're not very high, but that might also bode well for them if they're the third or fourth worst team in the league by the end of the season.
Well, yeah, sure, but I'm just saying your chances are never going to be that high.
No, they're not.
Okay? So, unless they get the number 1 pick, I would definitely take Anthony Davis off the table. I think and I know the Knicks have not been a very smart organization for the past 30 years or whatever, but do you do this deal unless you are pretty confident you can get Kevin Durant? I don't think so. I think they have to really be confident that Kevin Durant is going to be coming there. I don't know about Kemba Walker. I don't know about Kyrie. But you can't make this deal if you're not confident in that.
You're right about that. I think the other thing that might have influenced this deal becoming essentially going fruition is that they're unsure about Kristaps, and they probably did not want to spend the money on him. When they feel, I don't know, I'm again speculating here, but they might have felt that they could spend their money better somewhere else because of Kristaps' uncertainty and really the lack of desire to want to be with the Knicks. Not necessarily maybe New York, but his lack of desire to be with the Knicks.
Yeah, but even if that's the case, the clear goal here is do you want to get rid of these long-term contracts to create cap space? So if it was only to trade Kristaps, I think they would be looking for a different deal, right? They would be looking to maybe get some assets, something like that. Not to say they didn't have assets, they got 2 first-round draft picks, but we don't know how high those are going to be, and those are way in the future.
Yes. So again, you're right. This is they have to. They're pretty. I'm sure they're pretty confident that they could land at least one superstar, and the most likely superstars to go to New York. Kawhi Leonard is not likely to go to New York. The most likely superstars here are those 3 that I have mentioned, that I have talked about. Maybe a Klay Thompson. I doubt it, but again, maybe.
Yeah, I would doubt that as well. But I think the 3 that you mentioned are, the 2 point guards are both from the New York area, so that makes sense. And Durant's been linked to New York pretty much the same way LeBron was linked last year, all the year to LA. So my question, I do want to kind of talk about this a little bit, where if the Knicks were able to get a better deal.
And this one's hard. I haven't had much time to think about what would be a better deal. The one that has stuck with me has been the Phoenix one. I've always wanted to see him in a 76ers jersey, which is much easier said than done.
The 76ers wouldn't be able to take on those contracts.
Well,
right?
you know what? They would have been able to make it work, yeah. So with Markelle Fultz, Tyson Chandler, Wilson Chandler, Markelle Fultz, and Mike Muscala, they would have been able to make it work. Maybe
they would have been able to take both contracts?
They would have been able to take on both contracts plus Porzingis. That would have been about $37 million. With Wilson Chandler, Muscala, and I'm blanking here, Markelle Fultz, that probably would have put them at about 26. They probably have to throw in a Zaire Smith and maybe a Justin Patton. Bam, you get a deal done that way. Those 5 players would definitely be enough to take on 3 players that Dallas took on. So yes, theoretically, they would have been able to get this deal done. They have the unprotected pick from Miami, which I think would have been a nice weapon to use in this situation. So I will say Philly might have lost here. I don't know. And again, this all came out so quick. I mean, I remember it was about, I think, 2 o'clock when I read that